I just want to show you a quick meal today. I'm just going to do a few day prep here. Found a little chicken today whenever we went to the Whole Foods market. So I'm just going to prepare it with a few other things for today. And I hope you guys enjoy. I usually try to get organic whenever I can. If I do beef, it's grass-fed beef. This came from the Whole Foods market, and it has no antibiotics added to it, so it's pretty good chicken, and it is a whole chicken. We try to go by the whole prey as much as we can, but it's very rare that you can actually find whole animals. But here's this little guy, pretty hefty little chicken, and we're just going to take this stuff out of the inside, and this contains the organs. So we've got an empty chicken now. So some people say not to use the skin. It really just depends on how you feel. I don't like to use the skin, but if I do, it's kind of like, oh well, it's not gonna hurt them. But if I have enough time, I do try to take all the skin off. So I'm just gonna do that right here. Are you hungry? My babies are down here yawning, and they just woke up from a nap, so they're ready to eat. Ready, and that's a really good looking chicken breast here. We're just peeling back all the skin. Now, as part of the 80-10-10 rule that I go by, that is 10% bone, I don't calculate it that specific. As long as it evens out over about a week's time, it's fine. Because if the dogs were in the wild, they're not going to be measuring it either. So I just look at it, and I've done it enough that I don't really have to write everything down and do my measurements really specific. I just make sure that they've got enough and that there's not too much of anything. And so here is this chicken breast. And I'm just gonna lay it here. My dogs, they tend to have trouble with it if it's not, because if not, they'll just be playing with it all over the floor. And it's already kind of a mess. So I'm gonna cut it up for them. And I do usually use chicken as my base. I'm not where I can have much access to lamb. Venison is only in season in the winter time, so that's not really an option right now. I do use beef a lot. My dog Maverick has a sensitivity to pork, so we don't use that either. I try to make all of their meals the same with each other. I hate to give one something and not the other. But pork isn't really a necessary protein. You can use whatever variety you have. Chicken is a good base though, because it's not too rich. And I do have some filet mignon that I'm going to add to this later. I'm just weighing this over here on my scale, piece by piece. Chunks about this big. And right here we are at a little over half a pound to feed this to your dog. As long as your chicken is not cooked, do not cook the chicken and give the dog the bone. It will splinter and it will tear up their insides. It's very important that you know how to feed the bone. You feed. It's a little easier for them to crunch it. If your dogs have trouble with it, maybe even serving it frozen would help. So we're just gonna I've got this that I just weighed. I'm just gonna dump that right in. I'm gonna set this to the side while I do the other bowl that I have. And that was almost a whole breast that I just put in that other bowl. So I'm just starting with the other one now. Whenever you're starting the raw diet for the first time, it is important to know that you can't go all in with all of the organs and all of the fat and different meats. You do probably need to start out, or it's my opinion that you need to start out with a bland diet, meaning white meat chicken, for at least the first week. If you have to cook it a little bit, just for the dog's preference, if they're not so sure about the texture, maybe try searing it a little less each day. And smaller meals at a time also will help adjust to the new diet. It's looking good, isn't it? They're very excited. They're eyeballing the food right now. And they know what this is. This is actually one of the better chickens that I've had. Just very clean. We've got the same amount in this one, so we're just going to dump it in this bowl. And I do have a little tub over here. I'm just going to put all of my extra chicken in there, and I'll save it for the next meal. Sometimes these whole chickens can be pretty rough to take apart. But you don't have to buy it like this. You can buy just the pieces. I just saw a good deal on this today, so I just got it to do it. But you can just do wings, or you can just do breast, whatever you want. I just like the variety that this has in it, so they're not eating the same cut of meat every single day. And then there's different bone content in each cut of meat between the wing, the drumstick. I'm just peeling back the skin here. Which again is just preference. And so this whole drumstick here, bone and everything, I'm just going to throw in this little tub, and that'll actually be part of a meal later this week. And same thing with the wing. This can be kind of gross for some people. I've been doing it long enough that I'm a bit desensitized. You do get used to it. And again, if you don't want to do it this way because of how involved it is, you can just buy the separate pieces. You can even go boneless if you want. But this is the easiest way to get the bone in their diet. Got another good looking leg there. I will go ahead and trim that. And in case you didn't know how large these bones were, I've just pulled these out of the wing. But you can see for a large dog, these are not very difficult to crunch. And it sounds like it. You think maybe they're going to have a difficult time crunching it apart or digesting it. They're not. Their bodies were meant to eat these things. And then we'll get all this extra meat off here. And some people with larger dogs would even just feed this, the rest of this as whole prey. I have not been brave enough to do that yet because we feed inside, not outside. And I know what a mess that would be. There's a lot of good meat on this. And if you don't want to feed these larger bones, you can even save them and make a bone broth. I might actually do that with the rest of this carcass that I'm not going to use. And all that is just like chicken soup for you. Once you cook the bones, you need to discard them, but you can put them in a crock pot for, depending on how long you want to do it, 24 to 48 hours. I like to do it a little bit longer. With some apple cider vinegar or lemon juice, And you can add something else like ginger or turmeric or whatever you want. Stop fighting, guys. And you can actually serve that. The way I like to do it is to pour it into ice cube trays, freeze it, and serve it in the little bites on top of the food. Okay, and this is the little bag of organs that comes with the chicken, inside the chicken actually. So we're just gonna slice it open. Okay. Now, I'm not a scientist. I'm not sure what all of these organs are without being labeled. This appears to be the liver, which is 5% of our content. This is a gizzard, so it's actually considered a muscle meat. I'm just going to cut this right here in half and put it in their food for today. My dogs really like gizzards. It's a nice treat for them. They're a little bit tougher, so I think it makes them work for their food a little more. Then we have a lung and a heart. So, and heart can actually be considered part of the muscle meat. I wouldn't suggest using it for all of your muscle meat, but it can be used in the muscle meat. And my dogs had a liver treat today, so I'm just going to give them a tiny little sliver, although they'd usually have the whole 5% in their food. Okay. And I will put my organ meat all in a separate container. It will not go in with this meat just because I don't want to confuse it and serve too much of it after it's frozen, because after it's frozen you can't necessarily tell. And I almost forgot that we were doing a little bit of beef in here with this. So I'm taking some of my chicken out. Okay, and I'm just going to move these organs to the side until I find a place for them. Now, I have already cut up a bit of cube steak and filet mignon. No, I did not spend the money to buy filet mignon. A relative of mine had a cow butchered, and very grateful for them. They gave it to me for free. I don't recommend buying your dog filet mignon because it's just a little extra, but it's a nice treat. And it's already pretty much sliced up. I was just going to give it a few more slices here and there. And none of this is pre-seasoned. The cube steak is not seasoned. None of it's seasoned. You do not want to give your dog human seasonings because frankly they do not care what it tastes like. The meat is already so rich that they can taste that and it's doing wonderful things for them. And that's all you need. Excuse me. And now, eggs. Wonderful, wonderful eggs. I like to do organic eggs. These I just bought from the grocery store because I was running out. But if you can find organic eggs, that's great. I prefer that just because you know that they haven't had steroids, no antibiotics. That's the best for your dogs. That's the best for us, so why wouldn't it be the best for your dog? I actually feed shell and all. Some people might need to blend it up, grind the shell. It really is just personal preference on how you want to do this. But I stick the whole thing in there, and then I just tap it on top to give it a little crack so they can know what it is. And they usually do pretty well with it. They just go to town on it themselves. Let me go wash my hands and I'll be right back. And for today, I'm going to go ahead and throw this wing on there on top. I like to do chicken feet. They're usually pretty cheap. If you can find them at the grocery store, that's fine. Chicken feet have the bone content that you need. They're not really meaty, but the wings work as well. Any chicken bone works. The chicken feet are just the cheap go-to that I like to get, especially if I'm in a hurry and I run out. And then your food should look something like this whenever you're done. Now, there's other things we can add to this. We can add, maybe if you want to do some vegetables, you can add some. Always make sure you puree or steam your vegetables. Dogs can't digest the vegetable skin like we can, so it's best to put it in a way that they can. Whenever I puree it, I usually pour it into the ice cube molds and put it in the freezer, and then I just throw one on top. That way it's the same every time. I like spinach and carrots. That's the one I usually use with a little bit of turmeric in it. You can do bananas. I would say don't do a whole lot of fruit just because they don't need the sugar and carbs like we do. So that's really all you need. If you want more, you can add more. You can add goat cheese, goat milk, kefir 30 minutes before the meal. That's a probiotic for your dog. So if you want to do that, I do that for my Stella sometimes, and she likes it. Really, anything else you want to add, just make sure that you are balanced in the diet that you give your dogs. Because if it's not balanced, they're not getting what they need, and you're wasting your time. This is by far the best way to feed your dogs. So much better than kibble. But do it the right way. Measure your stuff and know that they have everything they need. Thank you.